welcome back to this series. This is Al Fadi, and joining me here in studios, our dear brother, Dr. J. Smith. And today, Dr. Smith is going to show us examples, at least from two different surahs in the Quran, Surah 23 and Surah 70, when it comes to the corruption that is taking place between the origin of words in the Quran and the original possible meaning for that versus what the new reinterpretation of these words could mean today. With that in mind, Dr. J, thank you so much as always. So what are these examples that you are going to share with us?
Now, we talked about Christophe Luxembourg. He's not the only one that has been doing this work. Another French scholar named Dr. Guillaume Dye, who Odon introduced in October, I think the 28th of October on Fander Films. He introduced these two examples that are also doing this in French. In France, they've taken the work of Gunther Lolling and they've taken the work from Christophe Luxembourg and from Gabriel Sama, this blue book here, and they said, let's see if we can find some other examples. And they came up, here's two examples I want to give you that actually shows you this, what I call this bastardization of the what I consider to be beautiful text coming about Jesus Christ. When you look at Surah 23, and if those of you who have Qur'ans, open up to Surah 23, and I've got it right here, I've opened it up, and I just want to read to you what it says. You can read in Arabic.
Which verse?
This is verse 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay.
And we're going to go up to verse 11. So just the first 11 verses is actually a beautiful poem, and it's done in mnemonics. So it has, if in the Arabic, it actually follows, it's beautiful because it follows the original Aramaic, and it follows, mnemonics means where you have a rhyme so it's easier to memorize. These are rhymes that also are in patterns that are easy to memorize, because if you're doing this in liturgy, if you're doing this to memorize it so that you can do it in worship service, you want to have an easy ending for each word. And it starts like this. Successful indeed are the believers. This is in English, obviously, so I'm not doing it in the Arabic or the Aramaic. Those who offer their salat with all solemnity and full submissiveness, and those who turn away from the al-lagu, which is like dirty or false or evil things, and those who pay the zakat, and those who guard their chastity. So these are the duties of the believer. These are ones who, they do their prayers, they turn away from evil things, they pay their alms, their zakat, and they guard their chastity. Verse 5. Suddenly everything changes. Verse 6. Except. So we're talking about chastity now, which means guarding your sexual promiscuousness.
That's right.
Except, verse 6, from those wives or those that the right hand possesses. Hold on a minute. Chastity, except for those who are your wives, plural, that means polygamous, more than one, and those with your right hand possesses, for them they are free from blame. Who are those which your right hand possesses? What does this mean in Arabic?
The idea is that these are your slave women.
These are women, concubines of war.
Usually. I mean, or you bought them, or whatever the case might be.
So what does that do to the word chastity?
Well, now it's talking about probably you not guarding your chastity with them. I mean, that's one way you can think of it.
It just destroys the whole notion of chastity.
That's right.
In a Christian context, chastity means the only person that's legitimate for you is one wife, one man, one woman for life. That we see in Genesis. We also see that in Timothy. You only are to have one wife. And this is what it's talking about. So suddenly this is interjected. This is not part of the mnemonic. This is not part of the original text. Oh, except for those who your wives, plural, and that which your right hand possesseth, means these slaves of war, these women who you get in war. Then you come back to verse 8, and it continues. Those who are faithfully true to their amat, that means their duties. In verse 9, and those who strictly guard their prayers, their salawat, their prayers, those are indeed the inheritors, who shall inherit the firdaus, which is paradise. They shall dwell therein forever. So here are the duties of the believer. They are to do their prayers. They are to give their alms. They're to guard their chastity from not doing anything that's dirty. That if they continue to do this, they will be in paradise. Beautiful poem. It's all there in Aramaic. And Guillaume Dye says you can feel it. This is a poem that was written by in the 4th century. And it was written in the 4th century as a prayer for the believers. This is what you get if you do this. Interjected are these two verses that completely shut down this idea of chastity as really, you can have as many wives as you want and as many sex slaves as you want. And then it continues on with the prayer. Now, to me, that's a bastardization of what was beautiful, a bastardization of what was intended. This is then repeated in chapter 70. In chapter 70, from verse 25 to 35. Chapter 70, verse 25, verse to 6, 27, 28, 29, you find the same duties again, the same duties in a mnemonic, just like you found in chapter 23. And then verse 30 and 31 says, except for the wives and that which your right hand possesseth. Chastity is except for these. That's the bastardization. Then it comes back in verse 32 to 35, which talks about the rewards in heaven. Almost exactly the same that we see in chapter 23, we see repeated in chapter 70. Now, who put those two verses in both chapter 23 and chapter 70? Well, the Arabs did. This is the Arab imposition and bringing and eradicating all sense of chastity. It no longer makes any sense anymore.
So re-theologing things, I mean, theologically speaking, it was one wife, one woman. Now you have to interject the new theology.
Now it's polygamy and basically sexual promiscuity, which completely shuts down any notion of chastity. And I say, this is what the Qur'an has done to that which was beautiful. And I look and see, if you're looking to the sieve, what the first 5 verses is what you see being put in here. In this case, what came out at the end was horrendous. So the sieve that was put in there, what they have done, they've done just the opposite. They've made it dirty and they made it sinful. In fact, there's no reason in the world to read the Quranic account. Let's go back to the original Aramaic account. And what do you find? You find these beautiful prayers that are to Jesus Christ, all about the rewards of those who actually follow and do what Jesus asked to do. So that's why we're sifting through and finding in almost every case, it bastardizes the text. Like what we saw when we talked about these hurus that are in heaven. Those hurus are not women that are there with translucent skin and firm breasts. They're really just grapes. Nothing more, nothing less.
Unfortunately. Next time, I believe we're going to be also unpacking something related to the mysterious letters.
We're going to look at the letters. Right. What are those letters?
Right. The ones that are known as the disjointed letters, mysterious letters. And of course, maybe I won't be surprised if most of our viewers don't even know what we're talking about. So we are going to unpack that separately. Thank you, as always, Dr. Smith, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. Until next time, have a blessed day.